Hello and welcome back to the Holistic Mom Summit. Today we have special guest Claire Besley here. How are you today, Claire?
I'm great, thank you. I'm so excited to be here from Australia. It's a long way, there's a long distance between us, but I'm really happy we can come together in this way.
Yeah, I going to Australia is on my bucket list. Is it warm there or cold there?
Right now it's very cold. It was raining yesterday, storms. Yeah, so we're just starting winter now.
Oh, do you ever get snow?
Never. You have to go a long way and go right up top of mountains to find any snow,
Oh,
unfortunately.
I live in Wyoming in the United States and we have snow. So I would be happy in Australia any
Yeah,
season.
we can swap. We can
Yeah.
swap.
Okay,
That'd be great.
deal.
Cool.
Oh, cool. Well, I'm so happy to have you here. I'm going to formally introduce you. So for those of you moms listening, Claire is the CEO and founder of Inspirited Solutions and Self-Directed Healing. Claire is an Australian from Melbourne who is on a mission to raise awareness about the importance of emotional health and its impacts on mind and body. Why do so many people experience this suffering on a daily basis? And how can we live authentically without shame and fear of being judged? How do we help our children in a climate of endless anxiety and mental health challenges? Claire observed that with more traditional psychological methods, as well as mainstream alternative wellness methods, parents and children had to continue working with mainstream practitioners for months or even years to achieve transformational results. Not a single existing method appeared to work simultaneously on all dimensions of wellness. For example, physical, mental, and emotional. Hence, the results were not sustained for the long term. Claire then went on to founder Self-Directed Healing, a cutting-edge process that enables people to heal themselves quickly and easily through using emotional consciousness. Claire has been able to see consistent and powerful results with parents and children, and she has some important information to share with parents today that will help them and their children to finally get the healing they need. The unique self-directed healing process has been taught in educational and corporate workplaces nationwide and is rapidly spreading across industries to empower people of all ages and walks of life to step into their true potential. Claire and her team conduct thousands of one-on-one consults across the country and internationally each year, with new practitioners being trained up monthly to accommodate the growing demand. Self-directed healing is going to make talk therapy obsolete and is revolutionary. If you believe in this process that Claire has developed and you apply self-help methods that she guides you to understand and value in, you can heal anything. I cured my this is a this is a review. I cured my social anxiety using the techniques that Claire imparted to me after just one session. And that was from one of her clients. So thank you again, Claire. I feel like I totally botched that, but I know that you're gonna create awesomeness in your speaking. And when we spoke on the phone, you and I have a lot of the same philosophies, and for me, I'm totally inspired by your process and how you work with parents, how you work with kids. And so, will you tell us a little bit about your work that you do?
I will. I'd love to. Thank you. Look, I just want to preface this with initially when we created this process about 10 years ago now, it was never ever intended for children and parents. It was actually designed just for individuals that were later, in life, in their sort of past their 20s, in their 30s, 40s, 50s, that were just needing to process emotional pain and trauma. And so I'll just tell a really quick little story, if I can, about how this came to be within this place. So I remember I'd been working with a client for a little while, and she rang me up one day and she said, "Listen, my 4-year-old son is having some challenges." What had happened was basically, I think her partner had sort of threatened to do some self-harm type thing. It was really challenging for her, and her child had seen it and was quite traumatized and had sort of become unable to leave her side. So gone from this charismatic child to someone who really, was clinging to her on a daily basis. And this is a little 4-year-old. So to see such a
Mm.
contrast in her little child was really quite upsetting for her. And she said to me, "Listen, you've helped me so much. Would you work on my child?" And I said, "Oh, no way." I said, "I don't have children. I know nothing about children. I'm not even legally allowed to work with children. I can't do it." And she pushed me and pushed me and pushed me. And she said, "Please, I know that you can help my child." So in the end, I was like, "All right, okay, let's try." And I was
Yeah.
absolutely blown away. So the process that we basically work with is understanding that emotions are actually more important than thoughts, especially when it comes to children. They're so emotional. They can have temper tantrums, strong anxiety, lots of crying fits. So our process really harnesses emotion and uses emotion to help, I suppose, release and allow the body to heal and the mind to clear. It's quite deep, and I'll talk about it a little later. But
Yeah.
normally, an adult takes probably 25-30 minutes of this process in order to get a result. When I started working with this child and asking him questions, literally he processed that sadness and fear in 10 minutes. And I was sitting there in the session working with this child just in shock, going, "What do you, 10 minutes?" I literally watched him process it. It was the most incredible thing. And obviously, we don't touch them, we don't talk to them, we teach the child to do it themselves. And I was in tears at the end of the 10 minutes, and the mother was in the room just sitting there crying as well. And she's just like, "What just happened?" And it was so cute at the end. He turned around to me and he said, "Mummy, next time I'm sad, can I come and see Claire?" And I was just like, whoa, because I wasn't used to
I
children,
love
and it was
that.
such a compliment. And I guess from there, that started the ball rolling. And I had this realization. I thought, you know, emotion is like food. If you don't process it, you get sick. You have to
Mhm.
metabolize food, it has to move through your body, and it has to be released. Typically, in society today, we block all our emotions inside us. We never let them out. We eat, we gamble, we game, we Netflix, we do all these things to avoid feeling and processing the emotion, which is a very physical experience. And so, I guess I had the realization, look, why am I working with adults when they've already gone through all their pain and there's so much trauma and there's so much to work through? I really need to create a program for children so that they
Mhm.
don't end up when they're 20, 30, 40 sitting in our chair needing this deep healing work. And it was then that I was like, okay, I need to make it my mission to help every child be able to learn how to metabolize and process emotion so that their lives are actually better from day one. And I guess that's really where it came from. The second aspect of that was that I'd done a lot of work with the mother already. And this is
Mhm.
probably the most important point I'm going to make today is we actually have a policy that we will not do a session on someone's child unless we've done a couple at least on the parent. And the reason for that is so much projection takes place. So often the child is feeling what the parent is feeling and it's expressing the parent's blocked emotions. And I can give you a really good example. So I was
Yeah.
working Cool. I was working with a woman whose child had autism, quite severe. And he was about 13. He was quite a big kid. And he used to have sort of anger temper tantrums to the point where he'd lie on the floor and yell and scream. And she literally couldn't physically pick him up and put him in the car to take him to school. So he would like mess up the whole day. And so basically, what I taught her to do, I realized very quickly with working with her that she never lets herself feel anger. So then I realized potentially some of this child's anger is the repressed emotion of the parent. So whenever the child used to get angry, I would teach the mother, I want you to ask yourself if you're angry and I want you to start feeling your anger and I'm going to teach you how to do that. Every single time she did it, the child would calm down and she would then feel her own emotion and the child would behave normally and she could take him to school normally. So we can talk about it in more depth, but really, your child is so connected to you that it's actually sort of so important that you do the work on yourself first so that the child is, I suppose, freed up emotionally from the parent, and not just the parent's challenges but the love. Sometimes it can be so overbearing, the fear for the child, the panic that the parent has, that the child's feeling all that as well as their own stuff. So if we get the adult to a place of balance, it's then much easier to work with the child. Does that make sense? How does
Yeah,
that sound to you?
absolutely. And it's so funny, me and my fellow counselors and my friends in the counseling world, there's so many times where it's like, if I could just work with the parents for an hour and the kids. And that's actually one of the reasons that I'm leaving counseling to go into coaching for parents and kids, because I want to work I want to work with the parents and learn their language here. And then I want to work with the kids and they can learn the same information in their own language and then mesh it together and create something beautiful. And so as you're talking, I'm like, yeah, like, yes, yes, yes. And I definitely, after this call, I'm going to be contacting you about your techniques too, because, one of the things, me as a mom, I struggle feeling my own emotions. I didn't grow up in a house where like it was like, and part of it, I think being an athlete, like you're not allowed to show emotion on the court because you got to go next ball, next play. And my entire life I was that way. And so as a mom, like I didn't even know what it was like to cry. Like I'm like, I don't know. I had to be really like if I were crying, you knew that I was really upset. And so as you're explaining this, my first thought is like, God, how? Like how do I feel this? And I know that that's what you do and how you work with people.
Yeah.
Uh, so
Yeah, I'll talk about that then now. So, look, I mean, as everyone would know, there's a lot of different approaches, there's a lot of different healing methods. And I suppose the hardest thing for us as an organization is everybody thinks they know what it is and that they've already done something similar. So, I just
mm,
want to say up front, it might sound like other things, but there is nothing similar. It's extremely unique. And it's one of those things that you'll never truly understand it until you've had it. Everyone that has it is just like, wow, okay. So when I'm talking about it, it is going to sound like other things, but I just want to preface with that. I suppose I might give a little bit of my background so that you
yeah.
understand how I got to this place. So I was actually born to a father many years ago. I'm 47 now, who wrote books like 50 years ago about the evolution of the soul and the spirit in the body and all of these intangible things that we all talk about. He was really ahead of his time. And so I guess what was unique is that I was brought up in an environment where all of these things were normal. So everyone's going on their new spiritual journeys now and making these big discoveries. I've never known anything else. So, from a very young age, I would be asking my dad, what happens when I die? Where do I go? And we were having all of these conversations. So I guess from a really young age, I was very inquisitive and about everything, in life, deep, deep subject matter. And I ended up actually studying philosophy at university. Again, I just couldn't get off that wanting to understand. And I suppose the first thing that happened to me in my life was my first boyfriend, who was 17 years old, actually committed suicide 2 weeks after we broke up. So I was very young. It was very confronting and very difficult for me because, as probably many other people here, I was a highly emotional child, very sensitive, felt everything. So I went through a lot of self blame. What could I have done? Could I have saved him? I had nightmares, dreams. I mean, for a parent, I think it was my parents' worst nightmare to see your
Yeah.
child go through something like that. I was still in school, and they were probably having these fears that it was just going to destroy the rest of my life. It
Yeah.
was pretty horrible. Um, and I'd been with him 2 years, so it was quite a significant relationship at that point in my life. And I
Hmm.
guess one thing that came out of that was this desire in me. I thought I never want anyone to ever have to be in so much suffering that they need to do that ever again. So I
Mm.
just was like, I'm going to make this my life's work. And I knew from then. And so by the age of 21, I became a lifeline counselor. Um, and I think at least I managed to help a few people, but I didn't really know what I was doing at that point.
Yeah.
Um, and years later, I entered the corporate world. I was considered successful, but I was miserable. Maybe like a lot of other people out there, I was making a lot of money, but I really felt like I wasn't contributing to society. I was just making the rich richer in a way, if that makes sense. So I decided, I actually sold my house. I sold everything to be able to leave and to start this business. So along my journey, I guess I looked at lots of different healing processes. I had a lot of challenges myself emotionally, and I was trying to figure out how do I balance and regulate myself. And I stumbled across a lot of I looked at hypnotherapy, I looked at theta healing, everything you can imagine. I went and researched it and looked at it. And one thing I noticed in common was that all of these different processes, including psychology, they all really they work with the mind, or some work with the subconscious, or some work with the energy like Reiki. But none of these processes treat you as a whole person and work on every layer. So we think, we feel, we have energy, we have a physical body. And so I had a realization one day in my kitchen, what if I could create a process that actually allowed us to work on all those levels and create change in all those aspects of ourselves at the same time? So that was quite a profound moment. I still remember it. It
Yeah.
was a turning point in my life. And at the time, I was working with some different people in different modalities. I started to send my clients to them. So they'd have conscious coaching, they'd have hypnosis, all these different things. And then I realized by doing all these different things in a sequence, we're getting better results. So I ended up actually moving in with these girls and we started working on each other. And I started developing a process where you could create, I suppose, a really, really deep fundamental change. But the key behind that was, we can't be afraid to feel anymore. We can't look at ourselves and go, it's all in our mind. We have to push everything down and we have to have clarity of thought, sense of purpose. We have to regulate emotion by having self control and discipline. I started to realize that all these things were heavy, weighed heavily on us, and didn't really allow us to experience the richness of life. Emotion is, when you love, it's so powerful, it's beautiful. When you're sad, it's deep pain. I actually think that being emotional is what makes us different from all the other species. And then I had a second realization, and I realized that when you feel emotion, it affects everything. If you're in anger, you can't feel love. If you're in deep sadness and pain, you can't feel anger. If you're in joy, you can't feel shame. So emotions actually affect how we see everything and how we think. So my second realization was this: we're spending all this time and energy working on mindset, mind shift, meditation, mind. How about if we shift the emotion, what will happen to the mind? And what I learned is by feeling and processing emotion, your mind clears automatically. So I then spent the next 10 years building a process that works through emotion. So when you access your emotions, if you've got deep shame buried inside you, if you actually start to learn how to bring it up and feel it and allow it to be fully metabolized and move through your body, you will have incredible and profound healing. And not just mental and emotional healing, physical healing as well. It's not something we advertise, but I can't even tell you how many hundreds of different things people have healed as a result of processing emotion, because emotion lives in your body. When you feel anxiety, it sits in your chest. Anger can be in your hands, in your jaw. We all
Yeah.
feel all these emotions and we all avoid them. So I guess this process was created as a result of understanding we must heal all aspects and we must process emotion physically out of the body, but also the mind needs to be involved in the process. So if you just pull energy out, but you're not conscious of where it came from, how long it's been there, what trauma is associated with it, what belief is keeping it embedded there, you're not going to heal because you're just moving things around. You've actually got to have full understanding of yourself, what's going on, and get to know yourself on a really deep level emotionally. So I guess that's where the process of self-directed healing came about.
Yeah.
And it's evolved over the last 10 years, but we're pretty happy with how it is at the moment and the results that we're getting. But I just think for children especially, the gift of being able to allow them to fully heal and process everything early on is going to create a lot more dream children for parents, you know?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
what I love is that, like, by working with the parents too, you guys are learning the same language, and like as they learn to process their emotions, they're learning alongside each other, and that becomes the new normal in their house and in their family. And so you're kind of rewriting their family rules as well. Like, okay, like here we
Yes,
are,
such a
like,
good point. Yeah, I love that. I mean, we've always said if we're going to bring this into the schools, the teachers have to be trained in the parents, because if you're teaching a child how to feel emotion, how to feel shame, how to feel anger, and what to do with it, and then they go home and they get told you're crying, stand in the naughty corner, it just undoes all the work. So
yeah,
that's another reason why you need to work with the parents and the children, so that when the child is sitting there yelling and screaming, the ideal reaction of a parent would be, are you feeling angry right now? Yes. How about I hold your hand and I feel angry with you? Why don't we feel this anger together? It's probably unheard of, right? So you
yeah,
just sit with the child and you learn to feel what they're feeling. And this is empathy and this is love. Instead of combating it, solving it, fixing it, just sit in it And then you understand that emotion and anger specifically is not something that has to be expressed. It just needs to be felt and processed in the body. So my what I would say to parents is grab their hands, hold their hands. Are you angry? Yes. How about I feel it with you? And then I would ask the child, where is this anger in your body? Can you take a deep breath? Where is it? It might be in my hands, mummy, in my tummy. And just tell them, that's okay. Why don't you take a deep breath and let's feel angry together? And let's get a little bit more angry. Let's connect with this anger. Let's feel it. And it becomes actually a way to connect rather than something that is so divisive that tears families apart. And obviously, there's more of a process that we teach the parents and the kids to go through. But what it really does is once you embrace emotion physically and emotionally, it doesn't control you anymore. You learn that it's a natural part of life, something that we need to have, and it's incredibly healing for a child to feel safe, to feel emotions. I mean, I think if parents could start to do this, it would change the dynamic between themselves and their children rapidly, and create emotional stability in that house for everybody rapidly.
Yeah.
How
And
does
to be
that sound to you?
Yeah. Well, and and I'm thinking feeling the emotions in my healing journey, I had to learn how to feel love, how to feel connected, how to feel joy. And so it's not just about feeling the negative ones and shifting through, but also creating room to feel more good. And so I'm thinking of I'm just imagining these parents and being able to live connected and no shame, no shame, no blame, no judgment, just like, okay, like we're processing,
Yeah.
great, we ready to move on.
Look, yeah, I think what's really interesting, and I think something else I say, it's often a little bit controversial, is I just don't believe in positive affirmations at all. And I just advise everyone don't bother. And everyone's like, what are you talking about? This is what everybody does. But the truth is, if you have to give yourself a positive affirmation, it's because deep down you don't believe it and you don't agree with it. If you have to look in the mirror every day and say, I love you, Claire, you're beautiful, it's because deep down I don't think I am. So my view and what makes this work powerful is instead of trying to create positivity, we actually go in and process the buried negativity, and then the positive comes naturally. So once you have experienced the anger and you felt it, usually always 90% of the time behind anger is hurt, grief, and sadness. So once a person processes anger, they then get sad, they then cry, and they then have a release emotionally, and then they usually go to joy and love very quickly. So what's
Mm.
really cool about this process is we don't even need to teach you how to connect or how to go to joy or love. Once you process those deeper, darker emotions, you go there automatically. So it's kind of a bit of a bonus. You get
Yeah,
everything all in
yeah.
one.
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And it just reminds me of someone had used this analogy of like a storm cloud coming over you. And that doesn't make the sun go away. Like the sun is still shining.
I
And
love
so
that.
kind of like how I'm thinking of your process is, I'm here, I'm enjoying the sunshine, this like fear, this anger, it's coming to cover that cloud of joy up. And once you clear that emotion, then you have the sunshine again. So,
I love that 100%. And I think it's just so important for everybody to know there are no bad emotions. It's
yeah.
only the way people choose to express the emotion that creates the
Yeah.
problems. Emotions themselves are not harmful. In fact, they're beautiful. And as we all know, you need anger because anger can create movement and make you do actions. If you're angry, you might actually go, I'm going to take a step to improve my life because this has upset me. Sadness can allow us to feel and then have more compassion and empathy. So I actually love all the emotions. And
Yeah.
the more clients that we have that do this work, it's such a beautiful thing to see them go from being terrified of their feelings to actually enjoying when the emotions come up and recognizing when you are upset about something, it's a trigger. There's something else going on more deeply inside you that needs exploring and understanding. So it's really a journey inwards rather than a journey of looking at everything externally. And I think the mother child or the father child dynamic, once both parties are able to understand themselves, we can really get back to love. And just like you said, and I think that's where everybody wants to be with their children, with their parent. I know personally myself, I had 10 years of not talking to my mother, some really traumatic experiences. And a lot of this work, obviously, I practice myself, and we're in a place of love now. And but it took, 30, 40 years to get there. I just wish for all other daughters and mums that they don't have to take as long as I did, and they can
Yeah.
use this work and get there a lot sooner, because it's a lot of wasted time feuding and arguing when really we actually just need to go deep within and understand and heal.
Mm, I love that. I love that. So
Mm.
cool. So do you work with people from all over the country? Like, do you work with them through Zoom or do you have to be in person?
No, no, we actually don't really do anything in person. I think during COVID, we used to have an office and people would fly in to do our training, or come and have a healing. But we moved everything online, and it was really since then that everyone it started to get popular. So actually, COVID was a bit of a blessing for us. So we have, I think, 400 practitioners around the world, and I think we offer it in about 8 different languages. And really, it's just as simple as getting in contact, booking in a session, and seeing how you go. But I guess, for anyone that wants to do that, they're welcome to do that, and we'd love to help you. But I think for me, really, it's about just creating that awareness that, if we stop worrying about mental health and start worrying about emotional health, if we can make that consciousness shift as a planet, as a society, we will see a real acceleration of growth and healing uh, around the globe. Because I think for as long as you're going to focus on your mental health stuff, you're not listening to the physical body, you're not paying attention to the emotions, we're just going to get stuck in this wheel. We're going to keep using a lot of medication, and we're not going to see a lot of change. So I hope this resonates with your listeners and with parents, because I know as parents, people don't want to be giving their children really strong medicines for all these different things. And if you could just try a different approach, and you might get some really exciting results.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
And I think, like for me, I notice from my students, from my parents, from my community, there's a lot of fear out there. And, fear from COVID, fear from just like you always look at something on the news that's scary or something, and so we have all of this information that's coming in, and I just can't help but think like having this tool that, having this transformation,
Yeah.
and, like it's just going to help. Bad things are going to happen to us, and
They are.
how we process those emotions as they come through us, it's just going to help us come out on the other side so
I
much quicker.
agree. And the goal is not to never feel negative emotion. The goal
Yeah.
is to be able to feel and enjoy and process all emotions. If your goal is to end up sitting on a mountain being a Buddha and just, being in bliss, you're not going to be able to live in a normal reality. Things
Yeah.
are going to happen, like, and so
Yeah.
we really have to change our mindset and go, how do we learn to embrace things that happen and process them? And there's going to be difficult times. I still have hard times. I still have rough days. It's normal. But it's not about not having those days. It's about how do you move through those days. And one thing I find really exciting is whenever people are booking in for a session with me, or one of my clients, one of my practitioners, I'll say, "Oh, you're feeling nervous about the session," and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, like I've got a lot of anxiety. I'm really stressed." And I say, "Awesome, that's so good." And they're like, "Why?" I say because if you're feeling anxiety, you're feeling
Mm.
the session, what we need to do is take you into the feeling. So when you get anxiety, you get like, little bits of butterflies, you get stressed. As long as you're actually able to feel anxiety, I can work with you. It's much harder to do it with a client who's numbed out, not feeling anything. I
Yeah.
wish they had anxiety because then I
Yeah.
could find an entry point into getting all the emotion processed. Does that make sense? So,
Yeah, that was my next question. Sometimes
yeah,
I have students in my office that are like, they're so checked out. They don't feel good. They don't feel bad. They just don't feel anything. So
yeah.
how do you get underneath that?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's really easy. It's really simple. Sorry, excuse me. I've got a cat that's escaped. Um, Basically, it's really simple because we've been doing this for a long time. We work with all of the emotions. Whenever someone can't feel anything, I say to them, "Do you feel numb?" And they say, "Yeah." I say, "Well, where do you feel numb?" And I've never had anyone not be able
Yeah.
to tell me. So then it's about let's find the numbness, because a part of them is frozen in time and they've shut down, and it's completely normal and natural, and they are unable to process and move through the numbness. So then we ask them, okay, where are you feeling numb? And they'll say, in my chest, wherever it is. What color is it? And how about, can we get more numb? Because in
Mhm.
order to move through blocked emotion, you have to process the emotion that's already there. So if it's numbness, maybe they need to feel a little bit more numb so they accept it, they physically feel it. They can get very cold, they can feel extremely numb, but numb is still a feeling. You're never
Mhm.
not feeling something. As long as you're feeling something, whether it's numbness or whatever it is, we can work with you.
I love that. I love that. Oh, that's so good. So, okay. So say there's a lot of moms listening, moms, parents, whoever's listening, and they really want to experience this and they want to experience it with you. What does the process of working with you look like?
Um, it's really simple. It's just going to the website, booking in a session. Look, I know a lot of people offer packages, do 3 months, and all of this kind of stuff. We really don't. We're that confident in our process that if you have one session and it works, you'll want to do more. So you literally can just book in for a one-on-one. It's on Zoom. It'll go for about an hour and a quarter to an hour and a half the first time, and we just get straight into it. I'm a naturally kind of impatient person, and so my job is like, let's just smash it out, get it done. Let's go deep, let's go hard, let's get you some results. I'm not really one for dilly dallying and let's spread this out over 10 sessions because, quite
Yeah.
honestly, we're all very busy. So the quicker we help you, the quicker we can move on to the next person.
Yeah.
That's, I suppose that's our priority, is to really get in there to the nitty gritty, get those results, get the pain out. And I think another thing I think maybe it's important to note is a lot of mothers and fathers that I've worked with, but predominantly mothers, sorry, have a deep down belief that they're a bad mum or a bad parent. You know, parents, mums especially, feel so much and they carry so much guilt. And I think sometimes that stops them from doing this work because they get scared. They think, but I'm such a bad
Mhm.
mum and she's going to know and it's all going to come out, you know. So I just want to like ease everyone's mind. Every mother on planet Earth at some point feels like they're a bad mum. They have
Yeah.
guilt. It's weird if you don't, seriously. So
Yeah.
I just want to make that clear that it's perfectly normal. But the way to process and handle that is we actually take mothers into that pain. I'm a bad mum. Really? Okay, why don't, instead of going, no, you're not, everything's fine, you're a great mum, which I'm sure you are, but we need to help you process that belief that you're a bad mum. We need to help you process that guilt because that guilt and those beliefs actually prevent you from having the best experience with your child because you're hesitating, you're feeling bad, or you're exploding because you don't know how to handle the guilt, right? So
Mm.
I really want to just welcome mothers to, instead of avoiding that and pushing it down and not talking about it, let's all just own that we feel like shit parents sometimes and it's okay, you know? And how about we have a conversation about it, process it, and start to move through it so we can become happier people with less guilt and better emotional and availability for our children, you know? So this is something I actually really enjoy, working with mums on their guilt, because my gosh, the look on their face when it's gone and an emotional and physical recognition that they're a good mum instead of just
Mhm.
mentally telling themselves they are, it's like their whole life changes. It's like, oh my God, I am, you know, I've done the best I can. I am doing a good job. You know, it's such a burden that I love to see that lifted for women, especially
Mhm.
I work with a lot of women whose children have severe disabilities. I mean, I'm talking can't speak, can't move, can't walk, you know, the guilt that comes with that. And sometimes, you know, parents have really negative thoughts about their children. I wish I didn't have this child. I wish they weren't here. You know, I wish something would happen and I wouldn't have to be a parent anymore. And I want to say as well, like, these are things that need to be talked about. This is natural and normal. You're human. It doesn't mean you hate your child. You know, it just means you've got feelings that need to be processed. And the more you keep them inside, actually, the more it hurts you. You know,
Yeah.
so I don't know if this is, if I'm going too far, but these I
Yeah.
think are
No.
it's a very important subject matter.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that vulnerability of, knowing, like, I think that every mom, has heard, like, someone will say, well, we all make mistakes sometimes, or we all do this. And sometimes you just be like, I just want to be pissed right now. And
Yeah,
but it's like that guilt, like it's something you're feeling, but you don't have to stay there. And don't make it wrong, don't make it, I always say no shame, no blame, no judgment, like feel it and
yeah,
move through it. And but sometimes it's harder than others, because sometimes, like, my thoughts will go like super dark and I'm like, ah, like, and so then I
Yeah,
pretend it doesn't exist. And then we hold on to that.
that's right.
And so I love what you're saying is, it's not good, it's not bad. It's just like love everything that you're feeling and then shift through it so you can get back to feeling that love, feeling that joy.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Instead of repressing it. And we do a lot of before and after testing. So every
Mhm.
session we'll ask a series of questions and we'll get at the parents to actually rate. So we'll ask them, how valuable do you feel out of 10 right now in your heart, really? And a lot of people start crying as soon as you ask them that because it's such a low number and they've never thought about it before. We'll also ask them things like, how much guilt do you think you're carrying? And we re-ask these questions at the end so we can actually see the changes. But one of the most important questions we ask is, how much compassion do you have for others, which is always a good number, and how
Mm,
much of that feeling of compassion that you have for other people, how much of that do you have for yourself? And the amount of
mm.
times people look at me and go, what do you mean? I've never thought about that. Well, we need that number at a 10. And I need to work with you because once your actual compassion and self love that you feel for yourself is a 10, you're going to be unstoppable. But
Mhm.
parents spend so much time sacrificing and feeling like they must put the child first, neglecting themselves and their own needs, that it's a disservice to them and to the child. So, if we can rapidly help parents have deep love and compassion for themselves, process their emotions, have physical peace because there's calm in their body, because there's not anxiety running everywhere all the time, just imagine what kind of parent you can then be for your child.
Yeah, I love that. I would be a totally different mom.
Yeah. But
Oh.
look, lastly, I'll just say, this concern about messing up your kids, like, I mean, we all mess up our kids, we all mess up ourselves, but we also give them beautiful, unbridled love, I just think you can't hold yourself to this sort of higher expectation that you're fully responsible for how that child turns out to be. I think all you can do is do your best and you have to surrender the rest. And again, that's something that we help parents with is to let go of that judgment and that expectation and be in the moment.
Mm.
And I think honestly, as long as there's love there, you're able to give that child something a better life than they would have had otherwise. And I really think it is about focusing on that and just doing your best and knowing the more healed and healthy I am, the better they're going to be. So for all the parents listening that are going, oh, I desperately need to send my child here, maybe you do, but I want to see you first because
Mm.
there's no point helping the child. I want to help you. You're the mother. You're the caregiver. You matter. And so this is a real paradigm shift for parents that they have to accept and start embracing if they want to see real and lasting change.
I love that. I love that. And so for all of you moms listening, the link to her website is in the email and reach out and take that first step in transforming yourself and your heart, your self-love, your emotions, and so that we can really show up for our kids and then sign your kids up too.
Yeah. And look, I think just one other thing, in terms of that, sometimes parents want to help. We have a lot of people, so we train practitioners to do this work almost monthly. And a lot of the time we have people, just parents wanting to be able to deeply help their children. So a lot of people will do our 3-day program to learn the skills of a practitioner. They'll start doing it on their kids and then they'll go, hang on, this is great. I want to go do this on the rest of the world. So that's also
Yeah.
something potentially if you really want to get into it or if you feel called to it. We definitely offer that, and it's a pretty exciting way to get into this work. But honestly, I mean, really, if parents can just start feeling with their children, that's an amazing beginning.
Mm, I love that. I love that. Oh, thank you, Claire, so much for being here, being my guest. And you've definitely opened my eyes on, like as we talked before, I'm like, I come from that counselor background.
Yeah.
And things that you say like are things that I felt in my heart, like this is slow, or, sometimes I get rapid transformation, and then a lot of times I don't. And so just some of the things that you said today have really landed with me as a counselor, as a mom, as, this coach. And so thank you so much. And I am absolutely going to be in touch with you. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me, and I just want to thank you for bringing this to the world because I think your podcast is really important. I encourage everyone to listen to not just me but all the episodes because this kind of stuff is invaluable. And even though it's an hour of your time, it can make a huge impact on your life and your children's lives. So I just want to thank you for doing this work. It's really special, and I'm grateful.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you. And I will talk to you later.